if you wait for missing ones, there is only limited time. And within that limited time also, let the Arc process, which is working at the lower layer, do the job. If that guy becomes successful in getting you the data within the time limitation that we have, like for example, whatever it could be, like 10 milliseconds or less than 10 milliseconds, within the time limitation, if Arc gets successful in getting our missing PDU because of the lower layer failures or your physical layer transmission failures, we take it happily and we think that that is a good thing happened and we continue. But we ourselves don't bother about retransmissions. That is what the higher layer would want from the RLC. But from the other applications, which kind of have a lot of time, um, to attempt the retransmissions, as the applications are, like they kind of accept the delay in the retransmission. So they tell this RLC that, hey, you first give the data to MAC and it definitely packs it into a transport block, and Arc try to send it. If any failure occurs in the radio level, Arc try to do the retransmissions. There is a negative acknowledgement and a retransmission. Let the Arc try the minimum number of times, whatever he could try, like 3 or 4 times, based on whatever the value that is set for the Arc. After attempting, after that attempting is completed by the Arc, now we'll get the data, we will analyze what is happening. Okay, how many of our PDUs are missing still, even after the Arc is actually doing the retransmissions. Because we are delay tolerant, we can take the delay. Now we can attempt to retransmit once again. So we ourselves send a negative acknowledgement to the other guy and ask him that, hey, can you please get it retransmitted to me? I want it. Of course, it will go through the Arc process once again. There is a probability of a failure once again. But you are delay tolerant. You have time. So at Arc level, you have to make sure that you can take only the minimum amount of time for retransmissions, as it has to accommodate everybody's timing into, by taking everybody's time into consideration. It has to accommodate the retransmissions, the Arc process I'm talking about. But individual RLCs don't have that. Individual RLCs say that, hey, we kind of more delay tolerant and we wanted to, wait for more time for the retransmissions. So if Arc fails, let it be. We take care of that on our own. So 2 levels of retransmissions got created. Now, the second obvious question that we get is, hey, why are we doing retransmissions at Arc level at all? We cancel the retransmissions at Arc level. Anyway, RLC is capable of doing the retransmission. Let us have the retransmission so only at RLC. And the RLC, which is operating in UM mode, which is not delay tolerant, will continue in UM mode. The other guys anyway will retransmit. Why do we have to do it? Why don't we do it? What is that we are losing here? RLC retransmissions typically considered as costlier from the your scheduling and everything point of view. Why they are considered as costlier? What is the cost associated there? Because RLC's retransmission will have to go through more processing, because it now will be traveling through 3 protocol layers and all the protocol headers. All the protocol headers need to be added, deleted, again decision making, and then reverting it back. So compare that to the Arc retransmission, which is only involved with 1 layer. That's it, from here to here. NAC and retransmit, just 1 layer at Arc level. So this is considered as a much faster retransmission. That means, if at all you wanted any chance to make your even live traffic retransmissions to occur without missing, to maintain the quality, Arc kind of a better mechanism to attempt it. It is kind of promising that, hey, I'm a fast retransmitter because I'm working at very lower level, not too many headers I would add, because already I'm taking a transport block which is added with all the headers like MAC header, RLC header, everything. On that I'm performing the retransmissions. So only physical layer processing is the thing that we have to do. Anyway, you cannot escape physical layer processing, which is kind of mandatory to convert your digital transport block into a radio signal. So that is still there. So only on little on top of it, we have the ARC. So ARC is kind of promising the RLC operating in UM mode, which is going to work for real-time applications that, hey, let me reattempt and retransmit as fast as I can because I am a super fast guy. If fails, I know that you won't take any more risk further. You continue as it is. But if I become successful, it's good for you. It's even good for RLC guys also because they don't need to take care of the retransmissions on their own because ARC itself is kind of making the thing happen for them by retransmitting the things. Only the things these guys have to do, the AM mode entities, after the things got retransmitted, they have to just reorder the things, reorder. Because when ARC retransmission, when ARC transport block fails, the next transport blocks will arrive. So order of the transport blocks will change. Obviously, RLCs will have to reorder them based on the sequence numbers. Sequence number reception order would be different now. It won't be the same. So that's the only thing that they have to worry about, reordering. They don't require to perform retransmission. Is that point clear, everyone? Have you understood why two levels of retransmissions? Any
Yes.
questions? All right. Now, RRC configures a lot of parameters with RLC. We're going to see these parameters. The first one, maximum retransmission threshold. It is a parameter that is associated with the AM mode. Now, AM mode has got this value configured by RRC, value ranging from T1 to T32. 32 means 32 times you can retransmit the RLC level PDU. Now, the point is why it is not infinite. Again, the question. Obvious answer is that for any application traffic, for any packet for that matter, for any IP packet or for any kind of data, there won't be infinite amount of time for retrials. There is some amount of time. Now, what RLC layer have to do once it reaches this maximum number of retries? Like if it is set to, for example, 8, it will try to retransmit it 8 times. But what if it already has reached 8 times? We have reached the end of that counter. RLC will go and report this to the higher layer, whoever gave the data to them. Explain them that, hey, I'm really, really sorry. I have attempted the maximum number of times that I'm permitted based on your time limitation. It was set because you have chosen that to be 8 times based on your delay tolerance level. So I have attempted that. I might have consumed a lot of time attempting retransmissions again and again, but everything went in vain. So it was not successful. Every time I got a negative response. I think channel conditions are pretty bad or we are unlucky, whatever may be, but this happened. So I'm reporting that it is a failure. It is a permanent failure for the packet. So your RLC will go and report it to the higher layers about it. What does higher layers do with it? That is the higher layers thing, which we will learn in our higher layer parts. It is not RRC. You read the header there. RRC configurable parameters at RLC protocol software level. So this software parameter works in RLC software, but set up by RRC at the time of bringing up the RLC entity. Next, poll PDU. What is poll PDU? You remember we have studied something about poll bit, P bit. If the P bit is set to 1, we are kind of requesting for status PDU, status reports. Now the transmitting entity must set this poll PDU to what value? Or when you have to set this poll PDU to 1, how often? Like every 100 packets once you have to request for the status, or every 200 packets? What is it? What is the count? So again, it is the duty of the higher layer to choose it. RRC chooses that, explains to the RLC, hey, I'm setting your poll PDU value to P32. That means every 32 PDUs once, you please request for status PDU, or every 32 SDUs once you request for the status PDU. That's the kind of stuff. Poll PDU is that. So this parameter is configured for the sending RLC entity or receiving. It is for sending, not for receiving entity. Sender will have to decide when to transmit the poll bit. So higher layer is kind of explaining when to do it. Now there is this poll byte. Poll byte can be set to any value. For example, it could be set to 4000 kilobytes. Now, out of these two things, typically only one thing would be configured, either poll PDU or poll byte. If poll byte is set to this parameter like 4000 kilobytes, that means after transmitting every 4000 kilobytes once, the RLC would be requesting for the status report. That is the meaning of it. Either it is based on the number of packets or bytes of data that you are sending in terms of bytes. Now again, it will be chosen by the higher layer. RLC just have to obey the rules and follow. Next. T-poll retransmit. You have set a polling PDU bit to 1. Okay, before that I'll tell you. You have sent the packets, sequence number packets from 0 to 99. And in none of these, any of these packets, you have, or in all of the packets, you have set polling bit to 0. You are not requesting for the status report. Some of the packets are definitely missing, but still the receiver did not send you any acknowledgements or negative acknowledgements for the missing ones. But you are sending the 100th PDU. In this, you are setting the polling bit to 1 in 100th one. The idea is that you are kind of asking the receiver that, hey, so far I have sent you 101 packets, 0 to 100, 101. I would like to know what is the status of each and every PDU that you have received. Can you please send me a confirmation of what happened on your side? Now, if at least this 100th packet is received by the receiving entity, what does the receiving entity do is, it will send a status report immediately after detecting that the polling bit is set to 1. It will send the status report explaining what and all things happened. It might explain that a 35th packet missing, a 72nd packet is missing, and 94th packet is missing, something like that. It will kind of send the report. Other than that, all else is received. The next number I'm expecting is 101. It will kind of send a good amount of positive report with certain only few things missing. But what if this 100th PDU itself is missing, the one that is carrying the polling bit to 1? Now the problem is, you're requested for the status report, but receiver didn't receive this packet itself, and you kept on transmitting the other ones without having to wait for the uh, status report, you keep continuing. You have requested for it, you know it will take some time for the other guy to send the reply. You continue, you send 101, you send 102, etc. But if 100 is not received by the receiving entity, it thinks that, okay, 100 is not received. Whenever the sender asks me about my status report, I will tell him. He will think that, just like when 35 missed, it thought the same thing. When 72 missed, it thought the same thing. At 94th missing, it thought the same thing. The receiving entity. Even if 100 is missing, the receiver thinks the same thing. 100 is missing, but anyway, 101, 102, all are coming in. So what do I do? Whenever I have been asked for a status report, I will tell that 35, 72, 94, 100 are missing. But the problem from the transmitter point of view is it is waiting eagerly for that bloody status report to come from the other side. It would like to know. It is very anxious about what's going on here. But when the report is not coming, after some time, the transmitter comes to a conclusion. I don't know what happened to my packets from 0 to 99. They might have been received by the receiver or they might not have been. I'm not sure about it, whether they have received or not. But I'm damn sure about one thing. 100 never reached the receiving entity. If 100 would have been reached, by now I would have had my status report that I'm expecting. I have waited for enough time, but there is no status report coming from the other side. 100 is definitely missing. So I will do what? I will retransmit this 100th packet now. So that is what is going to be the transmitter's logic. It thinks that the 100 is missing. If you need to receive the status report, you have to send a PDU which is containing the poll bit set to 1, P bit set to 1. That's kind of mandatory. So you have to resend it. No, you can ask, hey, why the transmitter did not transmit 35, 72, 94, the ones that are missing? Because transmitter is not sure about them. As you never received any status report about them, you don't know about it. But how do you know 100th PDU is definitely missing? Because you did not receive the status report. If you would have received status report, you think that 100 is sent, right? Obviously. You believe that the receiver is sending the status report by observing this polling bit. That's what you think. If status report comes back from the other side. So now what is this T-poll retransmit? So this is to retransmit the polling, um, you know, polling bit once again after waiting for some amount of time. Whatever the value that is set, if it is 15 milliseconds, after waiting for 15 milliseconds for the status report, and if the status report not received, you will retransmit the poll. So that means, even though you are configured to send the polling bit only 100 packets once, for example, as per your configuration, but after 15 milliseconds, you already sent up to 115, let us suppose. In 115th packet, you again set the polling bit to 1. Because 100th one did not get you the reply. So you have to retransmit the poll. So even though the timer is not expired for it, that maybe the setting was every 100 packets once you have to send the poll. But now you are advancing it. Why? Because previous poll did not get answered. So how much time you have to wait is kind of dependent on what is the total time it will take from the transmitter to receiver and to receiver to process that 100th packet and generate a reply and send the reply back. For this, what is the total estimation time is there? Based on that, this value would be set. It could be set to even 145 milliseconds if you think that G node B is a slow G node B. Or if you have enough time for waiting for the status report, even if other guy is not acknowledging back, if you have enough time and you have enough storage capacity in your retransmission buffer, so you can keep it to a bigger size. If you think that your retransmission buffer is very small size, then you have to set this value to small. Why? Because only after receiving the status report, based on the status report, you can empty your retransmission buffer. whatever the PDUs that are successful, you can remove from the retransmission buffer. So if your retransmission buffer capacity is not high, if it is low, then you tend to keep this value low. You kind of keep on going and banging on the head of that receiving guy to send you a status report. Hey, I want this status report right now desperately. I don't have any more space left out in my retransmission buffer. I can't send you any more packets because if I have to send any packets, every PDU I'm sending, I have to store one copy in the retransmission buffer, but it has already reached my maximum capacity limit based on the hardware that I'm using. So now you give me. So a lot of factors will be taken into consideration while setting this. We are not going into the deeper details. That's the high level thing that I can tell you. Well, more deeper details are there, but we'll not worry about them at this stage. You will eventually learn when you start coding the things and finding out different situations. Okay. T reassembly, another timer. These anything that starts with T are timers. This is also set by RRC configurable timer. So how much time you have on the receiving side to perform the reassembly and send the data to higher layers. For example, T underscore reassembly, if it is the case of the UM mode, after UM mode waiting for that much amount of TM underscore reassembly time, within that much time, if any of the segments that are previously missing, if ARP get it retransmitted within this reassembly window, then will consider yourself lucky, and you will take those missing ones just out of order and you place them in the correct order and you perform the reassembly operation, send the data to higher layer without missing any SDUs. But if you have received any SDU or SDU segment outside this T underscore reassembly window, or after the T underscore reassembly is expired, now especially in case of UM mode, you kind of say that hey, now that is useless. A HARP got it retransmitted but took too much time. Now I don't have that much amount of time to wait for it. I have already concluded that it is not coming, and I have sent the remaining ones in the order. Now I can't deal with it anymore. I'm throwing it into dustbin. It's a waste of time. So how much time you wait for the missing ones? That is what exactly this T reassembly is pinpointing at. Typically, AM mode reassemblies would be bigger when you compare with UM mode reassemblies, T reassemblies. AM mode reassembly, after reassembling also, if he finds that there are some things that are missing, it still have the time to report um, a negative status report and get it retransmitted. It'll have time because it's a delay tolerant applications typically use this. Okay. T status prohibit. Normally, for example, if it is set to 30 milliseconds, after you send a status report once, you are not again allowed to send a status report for the next 30 milliseconds. There is a prohibition in place. This is to avoid too many status reports and wasting the bandwidth. So they have said this thing. So if too many times the polling bit is getting set to one, or poll byte is set to a low value and the application is sending huge amount of traffic, and the poll byte is getting expired continuously, and because of that you are sending the status reports. So you kind of have to make them wait for status reports. Now there are two constants that are present in these RLC, AM and UM entities. There is something called as a window size. Yesterday, some people have pointed this out. Okay, now I talk about this window size. Let us just look at it first. This window size is typically half of the size of the sequence number maximum size that is possible. In AM mode, there are two sequence number sizes that are configurable, 12-bit and 18-bit. 12-bit 2 power 12 is the maximum reach, which is equal to 4096. Half of it is 2048. In 2 power 18 is 2 lakhs, some 62,000, 144. So that's kind of half of it is 1,31,072 is the window size for AM. UM, we have 6 bits and 12 bits configurable for UM mode entity, and window size is 32 and or 2048, which is again half of the sequence number maximum reach. 2 power 6 and 2 power 12 by 2. 2 power 6 by 2, 2 power 12 by 2. Okay, so what is this window size? Why do we need this window? Actually, this window works on two sides. It will work on both transmitting side as well as on the receiving side. And why do we need this window? What's the concept behind it? Let's concentrate on a little on this a little bit. All right. So I'm taking a scenario. First, let us take the easiest example of all for us, which we take UM window size. UM window size is 32 bit 6 for 6 bits. Now, if you take the UM, the maximum possible sequence numbers, actually sequence number starts from 0. In case of 6 bit I'm talking about, the maximum sequence number goes up to 63. After this, it will kind of have to become 0 once again. And then again, it will increase up to 63. This process continue. Forever. Now we have two windows, transmitting window, receiving window. Let's think about them both. Transmitting window. Can we decide the transmitting window to size to be? First of all, what is the meaning of a window? What it tells us. The window kind of tells you without further instruction, how many sequence numbers are allowed to be sent. That is what is the window is about. Window is all about without further instructions. For example, at this point in time, transmitter is allowed to send how many packets, how many sequence number packets without any further instruction. Then what is the receiving window? Receiving window is just opposite. How many packets you are allowed to receive without any further instruction? Okay, let us think about it, and what is this instruction also we'll understand. Yeah, let us assume that the transmitting window I am setting to, for example, 128 I am setting to, or 0 to 127 I set to, transmitting window. Basically, receiving window is also 0 to 127. The size I am setting it to 127. But the problem with this kind of approach, if you set this kind of a bigger value, window size, 0 to 127, you are accepting 128 packets. So transmitter can send 128 packets without further instructions. That means in that particular time, 0 to 63 would be repeated once. 0 to 63 would be repeated once again. 2 times it gets repeated. Let us assume on the receiving side, 5 is missing. Now, if this kind of a window is allowed, receiving it will think that typically only at the end of the window, normally I have to perform the reassembly. That is the normal convention. At the end of the window, you would be performing the reassembly operation. 5 is missing, fifth PDU here in this. 7th is missing. 19 is missing from the first 0 to 63 numbers. In the next 0 to 63 numbers, 3 is missing, 9 is missing, 15 is missing. But the problem is when it is performing the reassembly, the receiving guy is totally confused. Hey, 5 is missing here. I have received a 5 here. But do I have to combine, do I have to use this 5 here and do the reassembly with this 4, 5, 6, whatever I am having here, fifth piece, one piece is here, another piece is here, another piece is here. Do I have to combine that by bringing it here? No, you should not. You should not actually do that. Because that 5 is completely different and this 5 is completely different. Now you are trying to combine, actually missing one is missing in the first sequence series. If one element is missing, you are taking from the second sequence element and you're mixing it here, merging it here. That's kind of nonsense. If you do that, the whole construction will go for toss. So what they have decided? So what is the approach they have decided? Obviously, in this particular case, they said that, hey, this is not good. Everything, this particular approach, whatever that we are having, is completely bad. So instead, what should be the approach we should take? Sorry. Did not have option. Now we talk about the half of the size in this particular example. Half of the size. What is the advantage in case of half of the size? You have 0 to 63. You are giving the transmitter only the permission to transmit from 0 to half, which is 64 by 2 becomes 32, so 31. You are giving the chance. 0, just to 0 to 31. Now in this 0 to 31, on the receiving side, if 5 is missing, now before we proceed further, before we move this window to the next, before we slide the window to 32 to 63, you wanted to kind of already decide on the receiving side what to do with this 5. Whether you are going to wait till the 5 is going to arrive for you, or you are going to kind of ignore it, consider that as not going to come back to you, and by ignoring that, you are moving to the next part. If you are moving to the next part without it, so you will continue from 32 to 63 here. When you get to 5 here, you won't be confused because your sliding window kind of telling you what is going on in your overall process. You are not mixing one sequence number with the other. So in AMD mode, what happens? If you take AMD mode or AM mode, acknowledged mode, I don't know what option we have to try. Erase the entire string. You transmit there is a transmitter, there is a receiver. Transmitter is kind of considering the window starting from 0 to 2048 or 2047. Receiving side window is also 0 to 2047. That means the receiver is telling that I am given permission to receive only from 0 to 2047. Transmitter says that I am given permission only from transmitting from 0 to 2047. Now you transmit 0 comes here, 1 comes here, 2 comes here, it keeps going on. 3 might be missing in the middle, 4 comes here. Now, after reaching 2047, now you can transmitter have to kind of stop. It is not further allowed to transmit anything more because window size already reached. Now you wanted to move this window further. Move this window further so that you are allowed to transmit the next pieces, 2048, 2049, etc. But to move this, there is one very, very important aspect that we have to consider. Transmitter's window size is 2048. Very good. But to move this window further, you definitely need to have an acknowledgement received for the packets. For example, 0, 1, 2, 3 are successfully received by the receiver. 4 is kind of failed. It never reached the receiving entity. It is still waiting for the retransmission. Now that means the receiver will send an acknowledgement to transmitter that I have received up to 3 successfully. Now 4 I did not receive, I'm waiting for it still. You will kind of tell the transmitter about it. Now the transmitter is allowed to slide the window a little bit. Now the window can be slided starting from 4 to 2052. That is the latest window size. That means you're being given chance to send another 4 packets. 2047 is done, 2048, 2049, 50, 51, and maybe 52. Maybe one here or there, it's okay. That much is only you are allowed. That means you are allowed to slide your sliding window on the transmitting side only after you send the only after you receive the acknowledgement. Same way, receiving side window, even receiver says that only after I have sent my acknowledgements, I should move my sliding window to receive the next set of values because I don't want to create the conflict. If I allow every packet that is incoming, there is a probability I may be getting these packets once again because the sequence numbers will get repeated. These sequence numbers are circular values. Circular values tend to go from their minimum to maximum and then again become minimum. So again, 0 will get repeated if I allow these infinitely without having any check and balance here. So this window is basically the checks and balances. Just like how a democracy will have checks and balances. So this transmitting and receiving entities check balancing mechanism is this AM and UM windows. So they will keep on sliding it on the basis of these parameters that are in play. How much you are allowed to send without any further approval, or how much you are allowed to receive without any moving the sliding window. So the instruction that you are receiving from RRC, from this protocol configuration, a fixed protocol configuration, in this case, the one that we are studying is this 2048 and in case of AM, 1,31,072 packets. So in the 18-bit case, where application is allowed to generate huge amount of traffic and it is allowed to say, send huge number of packets. So your window size is large, very large. So you have good enough amount of time for retransmissions and everything. And of course, your retransmission buffer is also capable of holding all this. Just because your window size is 1,31,072 packets, that doesn't mean that your mobile equipment can send that many number of packets. What if your mobile equipment's RAM is only 1 GB because you purchased a 5,000 rupees 5G mobile phone, which is having only 1 GB RAM, which need to run everything that is on its space in that 1 GB RAM. So it doesn't have this much amount of space to hold the retransmission buffer uh, for these many packets. So you definitely, even though the window size technically speaking is 1,30,072 bits, your physical device capacity will make you beg for the status PDUs and receiver send the status PDUs to immediately to before it performing the reassembly operation. Even the receiving guy also won't be waiting infinitely. It need to perform the reassembly, send the data to higher layer. If you are not performing reassembly, you have to kind of make the packet wait in the buffer. Even for reception buffer also, you need hardware capacity, RAM and ROM. You need those things. So as those sizes keep going down, your fastness increases. Like how fast you have to exchange the status reports, how fast you demand it, the transmitter demands it, or how fast the receiver sends it. Everything would be dependent on that. So that's why The UE capabilities will play a very important role, and it is kind of mandatory for the mobile equipment to report the UE capability once it comes up into the connected state with GNodeB, so that GNodeB will be aware what kind of a mobile phone is it is. It is a Dabba one, or it is a gold mobile phone, 80,000 rupees, and having everything top notch. It wanted that so that you can play with this. Okay, there is some RLC entity handling, but anyway, this text is for you to read. I have converted that into an algorithm that is displayed here in an easier way. Normally, when a RLC software gets initiated, starts, RRC sends an instruction. Observe the color there. That's RRC. RRC sending an instruction to RLC. Hey, it is a time for you to set up a new RLC entity. Not entry, entity. It is typing mistake. So it establishes the RLC entity and then set all the variables that are required for running its operation. What are the variables? It will have to kind of define a lot of variables. We have seen constants, we did not see any variables. What's the meaning of variables? Simple. Just now I talked about window. What is the window starting position? What is the window ending position? How many status reports have been sent so far from the receiving entity? Receiver have to maintain. Transmitter have to maintain till what I have received the status report. How many more packets I have to send, receive the status report. The transmitter have to maintain those. All those things you have to maintain in the form of variables. One variable for maintaining what is how many packets I have sent so far. What is the largest sequence number I have sent up to 107. I have received the status report up to 5. I have to receive the status report up to 107, but received only up to 5. That is the kind of thing that transmitter is maintaining. What is my window size? From which number to which number is my window size? All these things will be present in the form of variables in a program, in a software program. Those are what we call as variables here. So it initiate, most of the variables would get initiated to zeros, except the window size. Window size, the right-hand side part will come up with, whatever the AM mode entity you are using based on the sequence number size. That part will be decided. But rest of the things would start with zero. Everything starts with zero, both on the transmitter side and receiver side. Then they will keep getting incremented. You send one packet, your sequence number need to get incremented. It will become next value. We call it as SN next. So sequence number next. So you kind of have to maintain this in a software memory. Whatever the software memory that we are maintaining, these are called as state variables. They are called as. If a if a software is doing its duty in a live environment, it kind of have to maintain these variables. This is the live information, live processing details. What is going on with everything that I am doing? It has to maintain what transmit, what is the sequence number I should use for the next packet? What should be the um, you know how when I have to send the status, when I have to request for the status report, how many status reports I have received, how many more I have to receive. Everything you have to maintain in some kind of a variable. This is live processing data that RLC will have to maintain. And these parameter values keep getting changed. These variable values keep getting modified as the operation is going on. Now, when you are in active state, you have to maintain these variables throughout. That is the duty of RLC. But when there is an instruction that is coming from the RRC, either to request or release request. Release request is kind of easy. If RRC is asking the RLC to be released, you simply discard all the SDUs that are present in the buffer, all the SDU segments that you have constructed after dividing the data. Yesterday we seen that. Discard any PDUs that you have constructed and kept in your buffer. SDUs are the ones that have received from the higher layer for which you haven't yet added the header. Segments are a piece of it is already sent out, another piece is present with you. Or a PDU which is there as it is with a sequence number, for example, or without a sequence number in case of mode. All of them you throw into dustbin because RRC clearly instructed you that you are releasing, you are getting released. You don't have any job to do anymore. So it kind of kills itself. But there is a mechanism called as re-establishment that takes place. RRC talks to you about re-establishment. In case of re-establishment, also you perform this job. Discard all the RLC SDUs, all the pending things that are going on. Whatever the data that you receive from higher layer uh, that is present in your buffer, if you have segmented them and sent some segments, or if you have any PDUs that are not yet sent but in the buffer, still present in the buffer, all of them you discard them. You kind of say, I don't care about them, I will discard them. And stop and reset everything. All the variables you reset and all the timers you reset. The poll retransmit timer, everything you reset. Why is that happening? What is this re-establishment needed? Why we require it? Normally, this is kind of ordered in case of failure scenarios or in case of handovers. If the mobile equipment is going from one Gnode B cell to another Gnode B cell, in the new cell, your RRC operation starts afresh. It won't be continued from the previous Gnode B, previous Gnode B's RLC operation. It need to start fresh. So whatever that is going on, everything will be discarded. You kind of give a fresh start. So you can see that RLC is coming back into the active state once again after stopping and resetting all the timers. So it is not getting released. RLC entity is not getting destroyed on its own. What's happening? It is still active, but it can be active in a new cell. And all its old numbers, whatever the sequence numbers it is maintaining, all of them are gone. So its memory is emptied. Oh, you can ask now a question. Hey, if that is the case, you are telling me that there is a probability, even though AM is working in, sorry, R is working in AM mode, you see that there is a probability that some packets might be missed by the AM mode. Yes, exactly, possible. Yes, especially during these re-establishment procedures. When there is no re-establishment going on, RLC AM mode kind of says that I'm invincible. If you give me the data, I get it by trying out many times. And if once it is successfully delivered, I kind of tell you, I will inform you back that it is successfully delivered. It kind of proudly tells this to higher layer. It is operating in AM mode. But if you ask the question to AM mode, hey, please, can you please do that while at the time of handover also? Says that no, sorry, man, I can't do that at the time of handover. You see, that's not my forte. At the handover, I would go for reset. So I will not keep any of these copies, any of these segments. Why not? Why can't we make the software do it? It is a software, just you written software. You are writing the software. Why can't you make bloody software work that way and maintain these things even though you go there? There comes the catch. There's one problem here. Can anyone tell me what the problem is? Why can't we maintain RLC from one Gnode B to another Gnode B, even during the handover? Come on, participate. At least 3 participations, please. Whenever I can deliver monologue way, I'm doing it. But at least every now and then you say something. Are you hearing me? I hope you're getting my voice.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yes, please go ahead. Anyone wanted to participate in this discussion and tell me why can't we write RLC software that still maintains all these segments and everything even after the handover? And during read establishments, especially why RLC wanted to kind of reset itself and forget about everything that's happening. Why? Yeah, it is due to RRC reconfiguration only. But see, point is, at the end of the day, all these protocols are built on something called as human common sense. Somebody who is writing these specifications, they sit together, they discussed different possibilities, and they decided that this is how this particular protocol should work. And there should be definitely thinkable reasons behind it. They did not blindly set those rules and said that everybody should follow while writing the protocol software. So there are definitely reasons behind it. So we're thinking about the reasons so that we gain that knowledge needed. We can just simply blindly follow that. We simply say that RLC gets reset, and that is how you have to write the software. Tomorrow you sit together, write C++ program, and you say that you get a re-establishment instruction from RRC. You discard everything and you write the software in such a way it gets reset and all the things will come back to zero. But then the question is, you never learned why it is doing it. So to think about it, it is not always about why the specification says so. There must be reasons behind it too. Okay. No answers? Moving. I'm telling the answer. I'm revealing it. I'm tempting you guys, but you're not responding. Okay, fine. The answer is pretty simple. Let us suppose mobile equipment is dividing a SDU into a segment, and mobile has sent that SDU segment, one half of it, to eNode B, first eNode B. Meanwhile, handover occurred before we could get a chance to send the remaining half, remaining part of the segment. So now what does mobile need to do after the handover and moving itself into the new gnode B? What is the problem now? After moving itself into the uh, new gnode B, what happens? What's the issue that is going to be? The remaining half of the SDU, now if you have to continue your state, remaining half of the SDU, you need to send this to this fellow, the new gnode B. Now, we have to kind of make these two gnode Bs coordinate with each other, because this half piece, it cannot send it to UPF, which is here, because it's a half IP packet that we have received. Half SDU typically is half IP packet, which we cannot dispatch because it is not carrying the entire data. So half of part is missing. So that's outside the question. Now these guys need to coordinate and send these half-cooked things from one gnode B to another gnode B, send this half guy, and once the remaining half arrives from the mobile after the handover, this guy need to assemble those two things and form the full packet, and then send it out. Stupid issue is recurrent. And then this guy is kind of going to forward it to the UPF after completing that reconstruction. And they thought that this is not a great idea of sending half to the previous node and half to the next node and doing the reassembly and sending it. So They said that, hey, sending this half on the GTPU protocol, especially the one that we are using between the two GNODBs, is not a good idea because GTPU is kind of prepared to carry the entire IP packets or SDUs, not to carry their pieces. Its design is to send the full IP packet, the tunneling protocol. Even if you want to tunnel the data from here to here, it's you kind of have to pack that half-cooked information in a GTPU packet and send to the other GNODB because it is considered to be pending traffic for you. So this kind of a coordination, that means the entire information that we need to carry from this GNODB to this GNODB about your RLC status. What is the RLC? What is the RLC entities doing in the sending GNODB? The entire information need to be sent to the receiving entity. So they thought that that's not good because we are talking about half packets, quarter packets, and things like that. They thought that it's not a good idea. We will do this at a different level. At what level they decided to solve this problem? This problem is still there. This need to be solved, but they decided to solve this issue at PDCP level instead of RLC level. So why PDCP is better and what we gain if we solve that issue at the PDCP level, we find out. But RLC point of view is clear so far. It cannot continue with these six segments in the new cell after doing the handover, after re-establishment is taking place because of a handover. It kind of have to reset everything. So there is a probability the AM mode RLC, which is operating in AM mode, can kind of get lost, uh, uh, can be losing some of the packets. That probability is there because it is dropping all the operation that it is performing during the at the last minute before the handover. Whatever it is doing, it will stop everything. It will reset itself. So who need to take care if RNC is also uh, not doing this activity? We still have the time because application traffic is delay tolerant. We still want to send the traffic, reattempt to send the traffic even after the mobile equipment moved into GNODB. But because RLC is getting reset, RLC is dropping the packets, we definitely need to have that buffer somewhere else as well. So obviously, the next layer, they decided to keep it for some extra benefits at PDCP level. So PDCP also have a buffer. It maintains there. And if at all, any retransmissions to be done because of these kind of missings done by RLC, especially during the handovers, PDCP have to take care. So we'll study all these concepts. I have opened the argument here. I did not close the argument here, but we close the argument today after the PDCP part is completed because we'll be having that logic, the rest of the logic included there. Then we will complete it full-fledged. Okay, now I talked about these variables, right, to maintain different states that are going on with your live situation, and those state variables are listed here, and all of them have been already clearly explained about what is what, and it is the time for you to go through them and find out and read them on your own. We don't have enough time for each and everything. Okay, so we have to move on. But because I put all of them anywhere at that place, but you will be able to understand easily. So it's not a big deal. TX next means the next sequence number that you have to use. It kind of self-explains. Even AM mode, because of the retransmission, there are more variables that are present. So when you have what is the next status trigger that you have to send when reassembly gets completed? What is the highest status that you have received so far on the transmitting entity? What is the next highest number, highest received state variable for which you have to still send the status report? What is the next sequence number that you are receiving? What is the next sequence number that you are transmitting? For everything, they are maintaining a variable. So in the software, you will write the loops and related things inside the RLC protocol software in C++ program by keeping the conditions on these variables. So if the variable value is less than this particular variable value, do this. You kind of write your switch case or your algorithm stuff there by converting it into software. But you will be able to pretty easily understand, and we won't waste time explaining each and everything. All right. Now, RRC configuration by, RLC configuration by RRC. What are the different things RRC configures? First, RRC configures whether the operating RLC is a AM mode entity or a UM mode entity. AM mode entity, then it is going to contain uplink AMRLC configuration, downlink AMRLC configuration. Please remember, I'm talking about this configuration on the mobile side. So this message is basically a communication happening between GNodeB to the mobile. So GNodeB's RRC sending these parameters to mobile equipment's RRC, and mobile equipment's RRC will give the details to uh, uh, mobile's RLC. So AM or UM. UM also we have bidirectional or unidirectional. Unidirectional typically works with only one side, either uplink or downlink. Or it could be containing both. If the application is doing both operations, transmission and reception at the same time, or you are sending uplink traffic and downlink traffic, you have to configure both the things. But each one of them are expandable. If you take, for example, uplink AMRLC, for uplink AMRLC related parameters and timers, what is the field length for AM mode? Is it 12 bits or 18 bits? One of the field length would be configured. And after how much time not receiving the status report, you have to send the polling retransmission, the timer value. When you have to send your polling bit to one, in how many poll PDUs once, how many poll bytes once, how many times you are allowed to retransmit maximum. All these are, whatever the parameters we have discussed, all of these are set by RRC basically. So based on those parameter settings, RRC starts working and doing its stuff. Similarly, downlink AMRLC, after how much time you have to perform reassembly? When do you have to send status report? And when you send status report, for how much time it is in provision after sending once? The next status report must be sent after the probit timer is expired only. Like that. Now, all these parameters, as I have showed you there in the previous slides itself, T-pole retransmit, pole PDU, pole byte, etc. All this is configured by RRC. Of course, individually, each and every parameter you will concentrate at RRC time also, we will see them once again. But anytime when any entity is getting set up, RRC comes with this complete package. Hey, this is how you have to behave and work. And please remember, you can ask me, hey, why we have to set up these parameters? Why can't we anyway put this information into the software? And let us suppose that why can't we decide to have this pole byte value, let us suppose, is set to 250 kilobytes always. If it is always set to 250 kilobytes, irrespective of the situation of what data going on and what kind of a mobile you are using and what kind of a capacity that device is, you are kind of setting the same property for every device by setting that value there. Then you ask the second question. Hey, the mobile company which is manufacturing the mobile already know what is its capacity. Based on it, one value can be set up. Why the network have to send it? But then you are not taking the network conditions into the play. According to the network conditions, these parameters need to be fine-tuned. Sometimes when you are like when night 2 o'clock when you are operating, the your operational conditions would be different. Afternoon 12 o'clock would be different, where you would be fighting with a lot of other guys. Then you don't need to have the values set to very high values, where you may be operating at very low values. But night 2 o'clock, you might be operating at very high values. So you have to give the chance for the network to decide live on the go. That is why these are configurable. So RRC decides them based on its own intelligence, because RRC is basically a software that contains intelligence. It will decide, and it will kind of stuff this in to from GNodeB's RRC to mobile's RRC, and that in turn configures these informations into the RLC software. On the basis of it, the software works. Please remember, every protocol software will contain some open parameters. What is the meaning of an open parameter? The whose parameter value is not pre-decided. That is what we call as the open parameter. So whose value is not hard coded. Another way of saying it, hard coded means fixing the value. If you hard code any value, we call that as constant. There are some constants when you don't require it to be set by the higher layer software. But whenever we have the variables, you must have the chance to modify them on the basis of live situation. Okay, last slide for us.
Before going one query, can you go back to the previous slide?
Yes, please.
So to set t-pole retransmit value,
Okay.
you have told like it required to consider a lot of parameters. Do you need to consider that max arc retransmission also? Let's say max will be taking 8 milliseconds. If you configure 5
No,
milliseconds,
that
it will
won't
be
play a role. Actually, when we take a retransmission into consideration, so you have to take what is at play. What do you mean by what is at play? You have two different guys have to look for two different things. For example, the RLC will be looking towards the application and kind of says that, hey, what could be the application's maximum delay tolerance level? Maybe based on that and various other little other factors, I may have a corresponding t-pole retransmit set. Okay, based on the delay tolerance level of the application. Hark is kind of saying that what is the minimum delay tolerance? When it comes to Hark minimum delay tolerance, it is minimum of all the delay tolerances of all the other RLCs. Now, other RLCs, maybe one RLC which is operating in mode might have an application which is having very, very low delay tolerant. Now, Hark need to work on that particular aspect, that particular point of view. You see, so Hark and these things are not related. So RLC kind of says, let Hark give a try on its own in doing the retransmission within the other applications delay tolerant point of view. It is not taking care of my own applications delay tolerant point of view. So I should not be looking at what Arc is doing, because Arc is doing whatever Arc is doing is a generic operation. It's like like a uniform civil code. It's for same for everybody. It is trying out for all of them as one. It is trying out, but RLC says that my duty is my duty. I have to take my application's needs or whatever the parameters that I have been configured by RRC into consideration. So RRC kind of takes the application specific needs, application related delay tolerant levels while configuring these values. Got it? Not basis on the arc.
it means if I give a configuration as 5 milliseconds, so it will give
Hmm.
some kind of wrong behavior, right? As per the point
Yeah,
which you are telling.
definitely. That 5 milliseconds, if you set it to t-pole retransmit, that means that you have an urgent need in something to be done in 5 milliseconds. That means what are you expecting? You are expecting a status report for 5 milliseconds, within 5 milliseconds. Why? Let us ask questions. Maybe your retransmission buffer is getting filled up. One reason. Okay, if your retransmission buffer is getting filled up, you don't have enough time to make your data wait in your buffer, retransmission buffer, because application is generating the data. The next set of data is getting generated already. That means application is very heavy speed application, generating the data very fast. If application is generating the data very fast, your retransmission buffer is getting filled very fast, and you have to use that because you don't have space base. That is again dependent on your device capability, device capacity. If your device has got capacity, it has got enough filling in your retransmission buffer. Even if application is generating the data, we keep the packets and we keep storing one copy into the retransmission buffer. So that time you can set t-pole retransmit to a lenience level of 35 milliseconds, for example, instead of 5 milliseconds. But if you are deciding it to be 5 milliseconds, means there is some problem. That means your retransmission buffer is completely out of your scope. Application is, kind of dumping the traffic into your entity. You have to deal with everything. So you have to get immediate status report so that you can empty some of your retransmission buffer, and also at the same time you can move the window further. Okay, because you have to take window size also into consideration. Simple point here. Um, Let me reveal this in this way. let us suppose that your window size is 2048, your window size. Now, for each and every SDU that comes from the higher layer, RNC is going to attach one sequence number. So if higher layer has sent 2048 packets, your sequence number would reach from 0 to 2047, the highest. It has already reached 0 to 2047. Now that means your window target has already reached with 0 to 2047. Now, you did not get status report received from the other side, and your window is not moving forward because it's already reached its maximum possible limitation value. Your window is not moving further based on the rule. But what about the new data that is coming in from the application? Application keep on dumping some more new packets. Now, what is the issue? You can add the sequence numbers, but can you transmit them? Can you store them into your retransmission buffer? Even though your retransmission buffer has got the capacity to store it, but you are not allowed to send the packet. Only after sending the packet, you can store them into retransmission buffer. That is the rule. So all of them are interlinked. If you have to, if you have to send it, you require your retransmission buffer to empty window to move forward. You want all this. So you are getting the data. 2048 packet you have received. You have added a header to it. If you send it out, you have to store a copy here. But that is secondary point. First of all, are you allowed to send it? If you wanted to send it, your window need to move forward. 0 to 2047 has already been sent. Now you have to kind of receive the status report from the other side. Now the point is, the linked point is this: how fast application can generate 0 to 2047? If application can generate 2048 packets every 5 milliseconds, let us suppose, then it is mandatory for you to get a status report within 5 milliseconds, irrespective of whether your retransmission buffer has the capacity or not. Doesn't matter. You have to get your status report received, because you know that application would be dumping some more packets and you want to send them. If you want to send them, you have to clear the retransmission buffer. You have to move your sliding window further. In order to move your sliding window further, you have to receive the status reports. Then only you can do that. All are interlinked. So it is all dependent on what? Ultimately, your application property, role, how fast it is generating, how often it is generating the packets, how frequently in time it is generating the packets, and what is the time relationship between application's time and your your TPOL retransmit time. What is the relationship? You have to think all these things into consideration, then decide the value.
So ultimately, this 5 milliseconds will decide the how fast that window will move.
Exactly. How fast we have to move the window. That fastness would be dependent on application fastness. You see, application, not only application fastness. I should not conflict myself. Two things. Not only application fastness, application tolerance level. Even if application is not generating the data very fast, but it kind of conveyed that, hey, I'm very tolerant. I can wait for the data forever. Even if my data is taken too much time to send it, I'm okay with it. Then you say what? Hey, this guy is kind of saying that. That means that can we wait like lot of time for the TPOL retransmit, or for that particular thing to be, can we have a bigger value? You may not be having a bigger value. That time you may have a problem with the retransmission buffer. So the interlinking is too huge here. So it is a live situation dependent on what is going on at that particular point in time. Okay.
Yeah, got it, got it. Yeah, thank you. I think you can move to the next topic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The last slide in RLC, modes of operation in RLC, UM, AM, and TM. UM mode, which is not capable of doing retransmissions on its own, is typically favored for live voice and video calls or live broadcasting and multicasting applications. Typically traffic. It's favorite for you. Why? Because it never required to retransmit. for live traffic. For example, you are watching a TV, you're watching last over of a cricket match for maybe 20th over of a T20 match. Bowler started to run and suddenly the TV disappeared, nothing coming in. Now the bowler bowled and score moved, and after that TV came back. Now you would be playing the live thing there. Actually, it won't kind of get all the missing things and play it once again. It won't do it. It will start playing the live one. Why is that? Why it plays the live one? Because it's a live broadcasting that's going on. We would able to see only live thing. Should not be playing the back one. So that's why your retransmissions will have very limited liability or like limited time. Within that much time, you have to do it. That too, we completely dependent on ARC process for performing the retransmissions. In case of UM mode, applications are not at all delay tolerant. They want their data to be sent immediately, as soon as possible, as fast as they can. Acknowledge mode, on the other hand, whenever we want reliability, and also whenever the applications of the kind called as background applications, file upload, downloads, browsing, etc., which are very, very delay tolerant, definitely these applications can use AM mode. And we are using AM mode for signaling our RRC messages or RRC plus NAS messages because we want some kind of a reliability for these messages. We don't want these messages to be missing, especially when the mobile equipment is under same cell. We want some kind of a guarantee because even if see, if mobile equipment is sending a measurement report to Gnode B asking for a handover. Let us suppose we have used UM mode. The measurement report did not go to Gnode B. Gnode B won't prepare for the handover. What is the problem if Gnode B won't prepare for the handover? You will lose your radio link. So you want this message to be going. So we want AM mode RLC entity to be working with RRC so that even if in the first attempt it won't go, at least in the second attempt it would go. Now, in order to make RLC work in any one of these two modes, unacknowledged mode or acknowledged mode, you definitely require some amount of configuration to be done by RRC. At least some parameters must be set by RRC. Like what? All the timers and everything that we have discussed, people retransmit, that this, all timers and variables that should be existing. But all those parameters can be configured only by RRC after RRC connection is established. So that makes these two modes usable only after RRC connection establishment. That means for a mobile equipment which is coming up for the first time in the network, this these two modes are unavailable. Only the mode that is available is transparent mode. That is why all common channels which typically gets operated before the mobile comes into the connected state, like BCC, BCCH and CCCH traffic, they'll all be using transparent mode RLC, where RLC doesn't do anything except maintaining a buffer till the MAC layer pulls the data and sends it out. That's it. They are just buffers, that too on the transmitting entity, not even on the receiving side. So no functionality or no functional scope for RLC, just a dummy block, just with a buffer waiting there patiently, just holding a plate. It is just like one Maharaja, is sitting in a Simhasan and there is one guy with the tea, standing there forever. Like, for after 2 hours that Maharaja drinks the tea, or after 3 hours, we don't know. It is indefinite wait. Same way, transparent mode is that kind of a guy. It tells to the lower layer that I can't do segmentation. If you ask me, I don't do that. If you take entire thing. I have this much size. So you report whatever is the size that is pending in your buffer, and you keep quiet till that much size is requested by the lower layer, which is MAC. So that's the kind of purpose. So all the common channels which mobile can use before RRC connection is established must use TM mode, as there is no possibility to use UM or AM mode, as UM and AM mode are dependent on the configuration, software configuration, the parameter configuration, which is possible by RRC in connected state only. That kind of concludes our RLC part. We took a little extra time for sure. Okay. Because it's a logical endpoint, better we take a break now itself. Uh, for 10 minutes, 11:35, we hit back and we study this PDCP without again any breaks in the middle. Continuously, we will complete it. Okay, so